have nice, evenly moist newspaper bedding. We left about 2/3 in here, and we have 1/3 over here. This will be the top. So first, we'll put the worms in, scatter them in. Then we'll put the top on, okay, the top bedding layer. Then we'll feed them. Okay? And then the outside cover. But this is just a holding bin right now for the bedding. But this needs to go under here because it's got holes in it. And worms are pretty curious little devils. They'll find these holes, they'll come out, and they'll, okay?
No escapees.
They'll escape. And if there's any extra liquid or anything in there, you just want it to get in your bin. And then this will be later on as things develop to catch and swap out, okay? As things start to develop, because this is newspaper now, but in a number of months, you won't even notice the newspaper. Okay, they'll break all that down with the food and everything. To me, there's no exact science to this. I started just on my own. I was new to Greenbelt. The Public Works people had a workshop with these vermi bins. You get to make your own bin, and then you put all the bedding in, and they gave you the worms, and you took it home. And it came with like no instructions. So it's like, okay. So I, fed them a little, went online, but all the stuff I could find online said, people aren't having much luck keeping them going. Okay. So I said, oh boy, well, we'll just see. But I couldn't find a lot of instruction on what to do with them. So mine were living in my living room. I mean, not my living room, my dining room. And I just kept checking on them. Dining room's right near the kitchen where the food is. So every day I would check, see how they're doing on eating. Some things they eat faster than others, some things slower. Some things they like, some things they don't care for.
They love pumpkin.
They do, pumpkin, butternut squash, lots of different squashes. But some things also I found that take them way too long to eat, like hard things like avocado skins and banana peels. They'll eat banana peels and they like them. But some things I just cut up a lot smaller and put in. Also things like, now this is, all depends on the worms. I don't know that they're all like this, but mine sort of had a pecking order of different foods they liked more than others, okay? So like strawberries, okay? I had mine, during the strawberry season. So I would just cut the tops off, the green things, but you also get a piece of strawberry with it. So when I would put them in, oh man, they'd right to the strawberries. So even though I put a lot of different kinds of food in, they would do things like strawberries first, and then they'd go. So what I did discover is, because it was such spottiness of how they would eat, because that's what I was doing. I put, strawberries here, chopped up banana peels here, potatoes here, whatever. So they would eat them. So then when I go and check to see if it's time to feed them again, well, it's not really.
It is and it isn't. Please, it is now 4:15. At this time, all clubs need to be with your sponsors, and all teams need to be with your coaches. All clubs need to be with your sponsors, and all teams need to be with your coaches. We're going to be coming around to make sure that you're just not walking around in the hallway. If you're not doing anything, you need to go ahead and go home now. But at this time, all clubs need to be with sponsors and teams with coaches. Thank you.
So eventually I discovered, I'm going to cut everything up, put it in a bowl, mix it all together, and then I sprinkle it all in. Then they would eat it more consistently. so that when I fed them, I didn't have to put a little clump here in the empty spot, or here, or here. I could just sprinkle it all on. Then they would pretty much eat it in a more even fashion.
So we might need to chop this food up a little bit. Would that be a recommendation? It's pretty big hunks.
We could, or they can start with it like that
Let's see what happens.
and see what happens. Start with it like that, see what happens. But you can also pull things out that aren't being eaten or they're taking too long. Because the longer the food sits there sometimes, you'll get mold and mildew that will develop. And also over time, I had, like when it was more the color of the compost in the bin there. So it was like brown, but I would get these patches of like, it was like mildew or some kind of growth. And I'm like, oh my God, they're all gonna die. What have I done? But it's really because they're too humid, okay? Depending on the setting, right? So it's no big deal. I just said, well, what can I do? I'll just take the cover off for a day, or a couple hours. I did it for a couple hours, things looked better. I scooped off all that white, little patch. And then things were fine. I took a spoon, like a serving spoon, just because it had nice rounded edges. I didn't want to damage or cut in half my little wormies. And I kind of fluffed it up a bit. And that was fine. They seemed to all be running around. And so things like that. What I found, the biggest problem was definitely humidity. Right? Getting too humid or getting too wet. Okay? But the humidity in my house and my dining room tends to be a lot higher. Like, we brought you guys one of these little gadgets, so you can see the temp and the humidity. Okay, now the humidity here in this room is 22%, 20-ish, it goes 21, 22. My dining room was like 60%, okay? So it's a lot different, okay? So you just adjust. So this may be just fine if you leave the cover on and you only take it off when you check them day to day and feed them. So that's just how it's adjusted. And I never ever had to spray mine except when I just did the bedding and set it up. I never had to add water. But you guys may have to because it's so dry in here.
Yeah, it's not humid enough. So
Right.
You're always,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of observation like
Right.
good scientists do.
Right, but I figure you guys are all like data collectors and stuff, right? So we figured that if you have this, you can do your data gathering and do your analytics to see. But you can see over time, right? And then you just manage them accordingly. You figure out what they like, what they don't really like, like I said, I found mixing it together, they ate more evenly. The only thing about this, you can't really, I don't think, you can keep it in the box because it has metal connectors and stuff. So when you're checking them or when you want to get your readings, just take a bit of scrap paper, old newspaper or something, just to set it in so it doesn't get wet in there. And that will read in like a minute, 2 minutes. So you get your readings really quickly. Okay. So I thought it might be helpful, just, so we were thinking to give you a start on being able to see.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And they don't really need to be checked it's not like, if you leave them for the weekend or whatever, they're fine. They don't need to be fed every day because they've got food in there, and you'll be able to see how long it takes them to go through things.
And break it down, it will all turn sort of brownish.
Yeah.
Not look like newspaper anymore.
Yes. Yeah, they really do transform the newspaper pretty quickly, yeah. It was interesting, because when I did mine, I'm like, newspaper, yeah, what's gonna happen with all this newspaper? And no one was saying anything, but you see it after a while. So I think that's the most of it. But like I said, it's not an exact science. It's not. You just, and because the worms are different, the environment, like in the room, is different. Oh, except for cats, but you don't have any cats
No.
in here, right?
No.
Yes, and now and then you'll get escapees, okay? Like they'll come here between the lids, some will come out these little holes. But you just pick them up and put them back in, or they're dried up.
She's gone. Ooh, gonna have her do that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Don't be afraid of
Any
it.
questions?
Yeah. I am wondering if it wouldn't be interesting to, I don't know if we have anything in the room to chop with, but if it wouldn't be interesting to have kind of half the bin with the big chunks, big food, and some with some chopper, more chopped food, and you can see the difference in how they.
Unfortunately, we are running out of time.
That's what I was
Oh,
thinking,
well,
we got
okay.
10 minutes here.
Okay, well, we can put the worms in, okay? Who's
Okay,
gonna
put
put
the
the worms in?